Welcome to the Leads Are Sht. This is a real estate magazine podcast where we have the owner of Real Estate Magazine here, Andrew Fogliato. Andrew is also the founder of Just Sell Homes, which is a real estate marketing company made to do all the things so that realtors can just sell homes. And my name is Taylor. I'm a team leader from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I run a real estate team that is the highest rated and reviewed in my marketplace. And I'm also a real estate nerd just looking for like a pickup meeting in a parking lot somewhere. And I love to talk about real estate. And so does Andrew.
My favorite.
So we like to share our perspective as always.
And we're going to have some fun with it. And today we're kind of going deep on pitching. So, pitching
Mm.
yourself, listing presentations, how to market it to minimize maybe how much pitching you have to do, and stuff like that, which we have talked a little bit before, but there's a specific reason. So, next week, we're both actually in Halifax because it's the Remax Activate conference. And they're having a pitch battle. So the pitch battle is basically, and we don't know who the agents are yet. They're going to pull a bunch of agents up on stage. They have like 3 to 5 minutes or 5 to 6 minutes each to essentially they're given a property before they go on stage and they're like pitching the judges why they should be hired to sell that property. So they're going to be given the house and I believe a few comparable sales to that house right before they go on.
Let's go.
And I'm going to be one of the judges. Craig says he'd win only if the comparables in Curtis. Come on. Uh, so, like, this is the interesting thing, though, about this pitch, right? Is no one will really be going in with any branding work done ahead of time. Because, like, it'd be like me coming in and now going to do a listing presentation for Taylor, right? Like, it's like me trying to get one of Taylor's listings on his behalf because he's busy. That's a
Hmm.
harder sell than you booking a call with me to talk marketing,
Okay.
right?
Let's work on that. So couple of things. First off, we always have a live audience. If you're listening to this
Yeah.
afterwards, you can join. You can come in through the Real Estate Magazine website at realestatemagazine.ca. You can find our podcast and then pop in and hang out with us because this is where you can ask questions to us. You can also ask questions to people that are with us. Like last week, we had Braden Wheatcroft, who's a real estate coach and also the broker and part of the ownership team at Remax Camison. We've also had some other folks on, like Ray Ellen. I was just chatting with Ray, and he is actually going to shoot over an article. So we may see him
Nice.
depending on how Andrew fields that. And that's something that is also going to be neat as we come forward a little bit with some guests.
Yeah. And I will be working. I saw the feedback and we will get that fixed up. There's a
But the
balance
feedback
there.
was great.
Yeah.
So definitely looking to basically harness more of the people that we're bringing on to package
Yeah.
it in ways that it's easy to reference, but also that it's easy to find. So if you are here like Craig Knopfley is, and we know things, like we know Craig Knopfley is from Curtis, which sounds like it's on Ontario. I'm
Yeah.
from Alberta. That's tough for me to say. And
Just east of the city.
we want you to introduce yourself. If you're in the audience here, we'd love to know who you are and where you're from because real estate is a geographical game. But I also want to know one other thing. Like, if we made this available in a listen only version, where do you pick up your podcasts? Like, I'm an Apple podcast guy, but I feel like I'm kind of like basic bitches because of that.
So I almost don't listen to them on any of the podcast platforms anymore. I just because now difference for me, I don't spend that much time in my car. So I just put it on YouTube and I just have it on one of my screens. So almost all my like podcasts are the video version on my screen. But like when I do drive, I'm doing audiobooks. So I
Hmm.
do the long form audio. Right now I'm doing one on Michael Jordan. That's my
Sweet.
current audiobook.
I am. I have been collecting audiobooks, and right now on my list is Sapiens. That's
I've
the
heard of
next.
that one. Which one's that from? Is that
Yeah,
the
this is just a
information
recommend.
technology one?
No, it's like a real
Oh,
wide angle view on what makes us us.
okay, yeah.
So it's
I've
more
heard,
like where philosophy meets psychology.
okay. Yeah, I did. I got Michael Jordan right now. And then I think the next one is like I forget the name of it. Let's see if I can find it. I think it's in my wish list, not actually in my account yet, because I was waiting for my next Audible credit to come through.
Hmm.
It was like a military leadership book, but like someone who basically wrote like all the lessons in leadership from a military, but they apparently have done it as if it's like a fiction novel. So it's like supposed to be like a really well-written story, but it's done to teach you the lessons of leadership through it. So it's like a different version of a leadership book.
That is my jam. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about it because we're going to talk about presentations, and I really think that the best way to package information is stories.
Yeah.
It's like the way that we're designed to take it in. I'm also getting my mind blown here in the comments because we can see that people like Ryan and Miles from Lethbridge, the Godlintons, are in the house, and
They're our
also
most
I gotta
regular
stop
attendees.
calling him Craig Knopfli.
No, you can still call them whatever you want.
Knoftel? Am I saying it right now? Knoftel? Craig Knoftel?
It's whatever we say it is.
Oh, all right. Well, that's no problem because he's
Yeah.
now Craig Knoftel.
There we
Uh,
go. We are good to go. Um, so,
and
so
Ron from Vancouver, good to see you.
the pitch here, like I find it is like we were talking about this before, and then we were like we should save this for the show. So the first thing that we were talking about, kind of when it's like you're crafting this pitch to win. So like for extra background for people, like the winner of the pitch gets gets tickets to like fly to the Vegas conference to do try and win that pitch. So this is almost like the regionals to get to the global thing, right? Like you're trying to punch your ticket to the Olympics of pitching. So
Yeah, so we're
it's
going to circle back to this pitch part of it
yeah,
because of the fact that this is probably not going to apply to as much because this is so weird. Like, how long do they get?
it's like 3 to 6 minutes.
3 to 6 minutes. You get some information in advance, and then you basically have to win among a series of judges. Andrew is one of them.
Yeah.
And I've been in those environments before. I actually got to design pitches that were at South by Southwest. I just actually did one for a well-known actress that had been on Yellowstone that is doing some great things in tech with wild horses.
No, oh, yeah,
So
you mentioned that one. I remember that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I just want to make sure I say her name correctly, but there's some cool people that are working on um, tech, and sometimes I help them out by writing
Yeah.
pitches. And these pitches are often um, in really high pressure environments where it's like 4 billionaires and 800 people watching.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're as short as 60 seconds. When we did NASA, it was a couple of minutes. And there's also restrictions on what you can say, but it's a very different environment and it involves a lot of judge research too. So I'd know a
Yeah.
lot about what Andrew is doing. And the lady I'm talking about is Dawn Olivieri, and she was like a fixer on Yellowstone, and
Yeah.
now she's using
Lawyer, but really a
yeah.
fixer. Yeah. So it's interesting again, like it's a very interesting thing because like we were talking about this before, is like, are you really pitching a consumer? You got to think about your fact that you're pitching three judges, none of the judges are realtors. I at least used to be. Um, the entire audience is realtors. So like you need a little bit to get your audience on your side. You need to get the three judges on your side, and none of them are active realtors right now. So like yes, it needs to be the best pitch, but you don't need to like you have to convince us, not a consumer. So you almost have to adjust your pitch a little bit, I think, knowing
Yeah.
what's kind of coming in through there. So it's an
The
interesting
judges
challenge.
normally have a hard time picking someone that the crowd or not picking somebody that the crowd responded well to.
Yep.
They also each have their own thing that they're going to kind of look for or value the most. And when you think about having different contestants, what does your personality say about you? Like when somebody has 3 to 6 minutes, what do they have to say or who do they have to be?
And if you only have that long to pitch, that's way harder. Like as a speaker, a 30 to 60-minute talk is so much easier to do. Like a tight five is super hard. And that's
Normally,
basically what
because
you're
it
playing
starts
for.
at an hour. So you
Yeah.
basically carve down an hour to a sizzler. And if the stakes are really high, like when we were working at South by Southwest, it was the stakes were as high as they get, man.
Yeah. And if you have 5 minutes, like you can do a or sorry, if you have 60 minutes, like you spend just 5 minutes setting yourself up almost,
Yeah,
right?
I would normally sacrifice even up to the first 10 minutes to work the audience of a
Yeah.
60-minute talk because the
Yeah.
more they connect with you and see you as being likable and credible,
Yeah.
then you'll get them moving. But if you fail to do that, it's game over. I don't care what how good your content is.
Yeah. It's like if someone walks out on the stage, be like, I can't hear you. And say it
Hmm.
louder. And like you do that, you lose half the audience right away because they find it annoying.
But
Um,
there is points that are easier, and I have to say
yeah.
3 to 6 minutes isn't bad. That's like hedging into TED Talk era.
Yeah.
And they did find a way to make it sizzle at about that time. But it's really going to need to be a good delivery with economy of words.
Yeah. Like you have to have it planned out, the beats, all
But
of
these
them.
things, they're also good like concept cars. Because you could think, like, what is the 3 to 6 minutes that actually wins me the listing? And how long do I need to be at that house?
With no brand that they already have. Like there's no pre-list coming into this. There's no marketing of yours they've seen everywhere. So
They don't
you
have
have to
friends that
fit.
work with you.
Yeah, like if we're thinking of that like sales to marketing thing where it's like you can either be sales heavy or marketing heavy, you're basically coming in and saying, I have to be sales heavy here. Like a referral comes in, you've already trusted, you're already like, okay, I know this person knows what they're doing. Unless I know who those speakers are, and like good chance because I know a lot of the Remax network since I started there. The odds are I'm going to know a couple of them at least, which is also an interesting dynamic of if I know them, how that impacts the judge of it. But that's a separate thing. We don't talk about my bias while I'm judging.
Well, I
But
think that we should talk about bias from a consumer standpoint, and let's put
yeah,
these judges aside and this 8 minute or six
yeah,
minute process aside, and talk a little bit about like what the essence of a marketing evaluation is, because with the timeline they gave, it's not really going to be about the value of the house.
no,
And it's not really going to be a lot about like market timing and how does this fit into our lives and all that other stuff. You're just really doubling down on why pick me. Why should I be your realtor?
yeah. And like you, I think you still talk a little bit price, but you got to talk the strategy around it and then saying like almost like we'll get to price later essentially, but after you sign. But I think you still need to talk a little bit of a pricing strategy in there. Obviously go to market strategy and then track record. Like at the end of the day, like track record is the most important thing to most sellers.
Hmm.
They just want to know they're in good hands with someone who knows what they're doing. Like if
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about you, I and like in your market, and this is where it's also interesting, right? Because you can't necessarily talk about your market, depending on where this has sense of being, is like the story of you going to Toronto to learn from the Toronto people to bring the people, bring those strategies back here. That's a story that can hit in the right crowd. Now, you come and you pitch that same thing to Toronto. The person who's been doing it for 20 years in Toronto. It's going to be hard to beat that. You got to take a different approach.
Yeah, and also you can decide how you want to compete.
Yeah.
So I think that instead of trying to win the argument, I often want to change the conversation. And I would end up positioning myself as the anti-hero in this story. I would talk more about um, I would play the emotional side and I would also wrap in my results, but showing that that's just like an aside. And the main thing is I have the ability to care for you. Just showing that and talking about being in both hot markets, cold markets. I've been through rough markets. I've been in real estate for long enough. And then you just lay on with the fact that also there's a lot of online information about me that's not written by me, like
Yeah.
highest rated and reviewed. So you can find lots of information on how we overcome challenges and how we help people win.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one of going in blind pitching like that. What would be the main 3 points you'd want to get across for them if you had to do a quick pitch to someone? Like, what are those for you, like the top 3 points you got to make sure they know?
They need to know that I can do what I say I'm going to do. That's
Yeah.
that like finding a way to basically land all my credibility points is going to be really important because then when I make them a promise, it's a deliverable.
Yeah.
And I don't like interviewing multiple agents. I'm actually not looking to try to convince them off of anyone else. I'm trying to get them to question others. So I'm also going to try the second point I'm going to try to hit is parts of this that others won't talk about. And
Yeah.
then the third angle is like a rotating angle. And the third angle, normally when I'm playing in my own market, is actually my three uniques. So if I know I'm competing against two solo agents, I'm going to be talking about being a systemized team.
Yeah.
If I know that I'm competing against another team leader, I'm going to be talking primarily about reviews because most teams cannot deliver high quality results through teammates. And if I know that I'm going to be competing against somebody who is like well reviewed and big enough that they would be systemized, then I really have to talk about the value of a team and like how we play as a sports team. And if I can talk about that more effectively than just somebody who says they have a team,
Yeah.
like they got one at the store, I think that that's helps us win.
So yeah, I mean, when you're doing it in market, there's arguments for going first or last there, I think. I think at like a pitch competition, I'd want to go last because I'd want to hear the others ahead of me.
I'm okay in a pitch competition or like you got if you are first, you have to you have to be memorable. Like you have to do things that might be less conventional. You have to do a different strategy to
Yeah.
win.
You have to come out with some part of it that most people in the industry do not do.
Hmm.
Because it has to be something that the people there are like, that's a great fucking idea. I'm going to steal that. Right? Like you
I
need
would
at one point in there that type of reaction, I think.
yeah. I would I I I shouldn't do this. So even if they do end up picking me, I plan to
Yeah.
recuse Andrew as a judge, and
Yeah.
also like I would love to get in on this.
Yeah.
Because doing it in the arenas that I come from, I just had to learn like a really particular set of skills. So I recently competed with 25 other agents in front of Tom Ferry at his office in Dallas for
Yeah.
him to invest in the future of my business based on 2 days of us talking about emerging technology and how we could apply it to real estate. And I pitched him on the cybernetic agent and I
How'd that
won.
go?
I won,
Against
but
it.
I also told him I shouldn't compete. Like, I understand that everybody here is a presenter, but I've done this for real.
Yeah. And so, yeah, if like, part of the reason that we started talking about this too is like going back to the idea of I still think that because I've seen it work in other ways, but not I haven't seen anyone nail the listing presentation version of it. Is putting that on YouTube and driving people to see the full here's why I should be hired piece. And that you're not constrained by time.
Hmm.
So there you could do it, I would say 30 to 60 minutes. I think you can make an argument one way or the other, how long to make that. But if you were to plan that out and you had that little extra time to let it breathe, how would you structure that type of presentation where you have a captive audience because it's someone thinking of selling and you had 30 to 60 minutes to get the point across about why they should call you and like the goal being this is such a good video and pitch about you that they're not even going to bother calling anyone else.
I love it. For me, I'm making notes because this is something I'm
Yeah.
working on right now, and I'm the
Yeah.
house guinea pig. So I'd really love to hear a little bit from you guys as well. And we want to make a sizzler of a listing presentation because I had a listing presentation that was a great converter, and mine was designed to do specific things, and
Yeah.
yours should be designed to fit your market as well. So when my market was slow, I had a great seller presentation that helped me sort through sellers that were actually going to sell their houses versus people that were not going to be able to tolerate the market.
Yeah.
It allowed me to find listings that wouldn't soak up my marketing budget without selling. And also, you don't get to work with people that you let down. Like, yeah, you can be such a hard worker that you go through the listing and they'll work with you again next time. But for me, I wouldn't even want to do that because now I'm getting paid 50%. Like I'm doing twice the work for one paycheck. So instead, when my market was a buyer's market, I set up a seller filter. On the other side, I saw buyers as being a high value. So I made a process that had them sign at the first meeting and filtered for buyers that were ready to action.
Yeah.
It worked really well. So then my market shifted. So I made part of a seller's presentation, but I kind of just went and jammed most of the time. And I can tell you that like my win loss rate is pretty good, but I want to
Yeah.
scale. So I need to make something. And I also want a consistent client experience.
Yeah. And you need something that, again, you're able to not have to be the one to deliver and they're still going to get the same outcome.
Yep.
And like the first thing, like when I look at that from like a systemization is like mapping out what your actual sales process is, right? So like somehow I talk about like marking out your marketing, map out your system to get your client a result, and then we give it a name. So because then it feels more proprietary of like this is this system we've developed in-house to get the best results possible.
Yep.
And
Absolutely. And I also notice that I have teammates that try to follow my lead and don't quite get the same results. And I want to kind of give them a
yeah.
better path. But
Yeah,
this is
well, that's what, right? Like that is a big thing. Is like if you're the team lead, or it's like me when I every time I've hired a sales rep, they'll never get the same close rate that I do, but I can't do as many calls as they could do.
mm,
But that's the challenge. Like I'm basically giving up a little bit on the close rate to get more sales
mm.
because it's hard. Because like I come in with the authority for the most part, and that's been that's been a big challenge I've had to work on is how can we maintain at least as close as possible this close rate because like no one on your team would probably be able to close as well as you could and how so like what would that look
Closing rate's pretty
like?
good.
Yeah,
Um,
but I bet yours, even if it's only like a point better, it's
yeah,
probably
no,
still the
I can
highest.
always use improvement. Look at me.
Yeah,
I was just talking about this in
you're
my
all
car
good.
the other day. I was in there with my daughters and my wife, and I'm like, you know what? It's very apparent I'm the ugliest guy in my family. You
Seeing your wife,
know?
that's true.
Yeah, my daughters, like it's
Yeah,
just one of those things. It's just a straight truth.
yeah,
So the same thing here is that there's going to be elements that work for me, and then there's elements that work for me that shouldn't really work. That just like fit me, just like there would be for anybody.
yeah.
But I think it's very important when you're doing these processes to start with audience first. Like the reason that we love shows like Game of Thrones or Sopranos is because they really understand the assignment. The highest value character in any story is the reader. And the more you're willing to sacrifice for the reader, the more they feel valued. So let's talk about it from like an empathy map perspective. So before someone contacts an agent to sell their house, what's going on in that household? Like, what's the temperature at the time that they make first contact? And why are they doing this? What do they want to solve?
Well, this is where you have to know so well who your ideal client is, right? Because if it's a family who's like pregnant, need a bigger home, that's so different than like working with divorcees,
Hmm.
right? Like the pressure is different. The like one might be coming into this happy and thrilled and just excited, but a little bit of pressure around we got to get this done before the baby.
Okay,
The
well,
other
as the
could be,
guinea pig, I would
yeah,
tell you that my ideal client profile called me yesterday and
yeah,
they said, "Hey, you just sold the townhouse in our neighborhood or in our
yeah,
complex. and nobody else sold theirs. And we haven't ever actually thought about selling. We just kind of went along, and now
Yeah.
we're in a townhouse with 3 kids, and we're thinking that we might want a detached house.
Yeah.
So this is families with kids who are upgrading. Those are my people.
And then nice that it's not like, because that sounds like there's not a big rush on it, so you can take your time. So,
Well, that's the thing is like that's
yeah.
kind of a double-edged sword. So
Yeah.
that's going to be one of the questions that they bring to me is when I meet with this particular family, we have to talk about what timing is right. Because if you have 3 kids but they're in school right now, then now's probably not the right time.
Yeah. And then do you want to stay in the same school district or you open? Because like that might be a hard, we can't leave this catchment area. Do you call it a catchment area in Alberta?
We talk about it in like
Yeah.
school zones, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, everybody kind of uses their different
Yeah.
phrasing.
Yeah. But yeah, like, because like if they won't, then you're almost saying I have to wait till probably April to sell and then you put a long closing on it.
Well, the big thing is what is the right time? So
Yeah.
with this group that's calling me, because of how they presented, is now the right time is going to be one of the largest factors for them, right?
Yeah.
Then the second thing is, the way that they saw me as being a potential is they saw me sell in their townhouse complex, and it sounds to me like not everybody does.
Yeah.
So in that case, like they're like, okay, you can get the job done. So am I the right agent? It's going to be easier for me to score on that because they just saw me do it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is going to be what's the right price? So those are the things that normally get me to the house. And then I'm listening on the phone and I'm like, oh, okay. So you are trying to make sure there aren't any obstacles because you definitely need the space.
Yeah.
So you're really just calling me because a lot of times people need confirmation that this isn't a bad idea. There's some things in there that will kind of help them out with. But that's basically, I think that Ray Allen outlined that really well when he was on, and that's the phrasing that he used,
Yeah.
which is now the right time? Am I the right agent? What is the right price?
Well, it's part of like the Dean Jackson 5-star lead, right? Of friendly, willing to engage. They know what they want when they want it, and they want your help to do it.
Can you go through that one more time?
Yeah. So the 5-star lead, I mean, the first one, friendly and engaged, or yeah, it's like, are they friendly? Are they willing to engage with you? And that if they're calling you because of a sign call, you already know they're willing to engage, probably friendly, uh, but not always. Do they know what they want, when they want it, and do they want your help to do it? So it's establishing really the last three, because if they're talking to you and you're getting to those, then you already got the first two. Um,
Mm.
but then you're kind of if you can establish those three, that's the 5-star.
I was thinking about that just the other day and I wanted to make sure I got it, but I scanned the audience here and it looks like one of the AIs that's missing is mine. I gotta remember that.
Sucker.
So the the other thing that I really look at is something I call the seller's algorithm, which is what the formula of the question that the seller is normally asking me is if I sell, will I have enough money to do whatever I plan to do next? So
Yeah.
there's something that either they want the money to go put it here, maybe they feel as though if it's an investment, they feel as though it's not performing as well as it would somewhere else. Maybe if it's their principal residence, they're thinking about upgrading, they're thinking about selling this house so that they can buy, like move somewhere else. It could also be that they are wondering about it because they're also talking about ending their relationship. There can be a whole bunch of reasons.
Yeah. But this is where it gets interesting to do the listing presentation online. That is, this is the same one everyone watches, right? Like I would still be hitting the things of my ideal clients, but you still need a little bit of generality in there depending on the specifics of theirs that it still resonates with them.
Mhm.
And then you can make it so much more tailored when you do meet them in person. But
Yeah,
it's
but
that
you're
like,
just selling the specificity.
yeah,
So if you're talking generally, like maybe if we made a video that is like selling your townhouse with me in 2026,
yeah,
I could say like these are the steps we go through. So we first start with market research. Normally, what we're looking for is like this, and this. part of the reason that we're looking for that is so that we can give you a strategy that fits your situation. Like if
Yeah.
everything in your area is selling and we know that like you hear people say it's going to sell quick, well then our job is to take all of that potential and add pressure so that results in the most money, and
Yeah.
that's our launch process.
Yeah.
Whereas if we take a look in your neighborhood and only 1 out of 2 listings are selling, well, now it's more about reading that and saying, like, okay, we know that if you end up on the podium, second and third place don't get an offer. So, are you, like, what does it take to be first?
Yeah. And
Very
like
different.
it's detailing it specifically for them. And like the pitch at the end is let's apply this plan to you.
Yeah, for your specific situation,
Yeah.
invite me over.
Yeah.
Right.
Because then
And
they
you were
just feel
talking
like you
about
have it.
like the concept of this is actually to get them to sign a listing before they meet with you. And technically, there would be circumstances where that's realistic. Like if you ended up having somebody who is so notable in real estate, right? Like maybe like the McGillivray guy that Scott
Scott
McGillivray.
McGillivray. Yep.
Yeah, so somebody who has like a brand around it, and he says he's going to come to your house and list your house, and it's going to be for market value, and there's ways out if you chose not to do it. Like you could get a signature.
Yep.
And for me, what I'm wondering is like if we connect this to an appointment booker, like is that going to give us enough leading indicators that we can eventually get there where they would just like commit to a time with enough information that we know it's legit?
Yeah. It's like I think you go into like when you're designing this process as a like marketing tool, you're going into it with the idea of could I put in the description of the meeting a link to a like almost like customizable DocuSign they could go sign up right there. In practice, that's not actually what you want to happen because like you have to still qualify that they are actually going to move. They're not going to waste your time and money and like this is a legit lead. But you want them to be ready to do that. So it's you're not going into pitch anymore. You're going into essentially confirm they're a client you want. That's the reverse that we're really trying to get to is now it's an appointment where you're vetting them, not them vetting you. Like you're almost flipping it to they have to audition to get you now. Is
Well, as soon
essentially
as
what
you
we're trying to
are
switch it.
so good at helping people that they actually find you other people, you get in this situation
No.
where you're basically calling people on the phone, and sometimes they even acknowledge that. And they say like, "Hey, I know you're really busy, but
No.
that is how I know they see me as valuable." Or when they're like, "Hey, you know what? I've seen you sell some pretty big houses. Do you sell regular sized houses too?" I'm
And
like,
there
"Oh,
is a
yeah, how do I
challenge
get to
in
this
there.
appointment?"
Yeah.
Because you are showing me that you will value what I say about the situation, and we're going to have such a great win.
Yeah.
The coachable clients, they do the best.
You do have to watch out for that trap though of like do they have enough time for me? Because there are also a large group of people who won't call because they just assume you're too busy for them.
Mm.
Like that's happened to me even before I bought REM, where there would be like people who are like, "No, I really wanted to work with you on this," and we had room for them, and they're like, "How like obviously you're too busy to like take someone like me on." I was like, "You're exactly the people we want here." Like, but it's they that perception of too busy. Or like
Mm.
even when I sold, I specialized as like the first time buyer, first time seller specialist. Like that was my niche in Aurora. And I
Mm.
had someone, because I niched down so hard, I had someone who lived 2 minutes over the border of the next town in Newmarket, which is, if you know Aurora, Newmarket, it's essentially the same town from like that close. And they're like, "Can you still sell there? I don't know. Like, you might not be able to help me." It's like, "Yes, I can drive 2 extra minutes."
So this is what you were talking about,
Yeah.
where you made your content like as though you were talking to your ideal client profile.
Yeah.
Those are the people it would resonate with, and then they would filter in. They'd be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, he means people like
Yeah.
me." And if you use
Exactly.
those calls to action that are like associative, and it'd be like, "This is what my last 3 phone calls were about. It was people like you trying to solve a problem like this."
Yeah. And like you're almost layering into the idea a little bit with like a video like this too, of like part of the reason I'm putting this out there is so I can spend my time focusing on clients instead of doing this presentation a million times one at one.
Mm.
Like you're trying to get across this idea of I'm doing this so I can spend more time with my clients.
Hmm.
I'm putting all this out there so that you can decide if you want to work with me. Who else do you see doing that? Because everyone
Yeah.
else is very cagey about it, right? Like how many people are so cagey about every detail of their listing presentation? They don't want anyone to see anything. And you're like, no, here's everything.
Also, that's a flex, right?
Yep.
Like we're going to calculate how many listings that I can serve, and then we're going to tell people we have this many slots for the next month.
Yeah.
We have this many slots for this coming month. And if we can do that and draw enough in where you end up with that overflow, like I have a team that will essentially do my overflow and it'll either say, do you want to wait for next month or do you want to come meet with Anthony or whoever
Yeah.
else, right?
Well, it's
So
such an easy one to be like, I can take
yeah.
10 listings a month. And just be like, or five, or whatever your number is. But like
Mhm.
everyone would have a number. If I was to do like a perfect job on selling a listing, like and give them the full service, I felt that like how many of those could you realistically do a month? So like with you and
Yeah.
your process right now, where would you cap out with your current team?
Well, I like to run listings into weekends.
Yeah.
And my market was hot enough to do the launch process that we've been doing, and I was calling to the market for properties that would work with this process. Then the limitation it's going to be is like where I'm setting my multiple offers. So in
Yeah.
the beginning, I've done three multiple offer reviews in one night where all
Yeah.
of them were over 15 offers, and one of them was like close to 50. And that was a lot, right? Like
Yeah.
even working with an assistant. So then I would be like, oh, okay, well, I can stagger them a little bit if I'm willing to do this. So I could basically have like, maybe I limit myself to two when they're super spicy, and I do two on Sunday, two on Monday, two on Tuesday, and then that works off my weekend rollout. I really think that that could probably like six a week. But then when I take a look at the front end, loading all those listings, all those photo shoots, I think we
Yeah.
would really have to build up to that. So I would probably say that I would maybe be 8 to 10 a month.
So then right
If
there
it
you
was
start
just
with
me managing them, and then we
yeah.
can also pull Tony in to do pretty close to the same.
And I think like right there is a like a pitch you're gonna make of like in the video in your marketing here a little bit of like we have this process we've defined. Here's how it helps our clients. Essentially, like, here's how it helps you. We have this so nailed down in the resources. We will take up to 10 clients max a month because we need to make sure that they get to like the consumer, they don't know if that's a little or a lot, right? Like
Hmm.
someone else, if they think they can only handle two, might just say, I take two per month, right? And then as your capacity expands, you just change that number up and up and up. Um, But like if you're one like the biggest team in Canada, like if you're Mark Ferris, you might that number might be I can take 50 a month and we
All right,
cap
let's
it there.
get back into the actual presentation itself or empathy mapping or mapping
Yeah.
around it. So we talked about like maybe before you arrive, there's some uncertainty in that house.
Yeah.
They probably have a rough idea or maybe not, depending on how good they are at seeing what's selling around them or extrapolating from what they see, but a lot of people aren't. They're also at some level going to kind of feel judged. Like when you walk in for this purpose of evaluation that affects their outcome, there is going to be some sense of feeling exposed or judged.
Yeah.
Uh, there's also going to be like a tie to whatever the pull is. And the example we were using is more space for a family.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a more urgent one. It could be shorter commute times. It could be um, getting closer to support is a big one for new families. Or the school changes where they go from
Yeah.
like elementary to junior high and then they want to reposition so they still get to walk home at lunch. These are all the things that that kind of group thinks about.
Yeah. So like how I would approach that in the video, because we're not doing it with the person live, is I would do the triangle. Like I would almost like have it drawn on the screen as I'm talking about it and be like, every seller has three things like when they're looking at where they're going that they need to figure out: price, location, and condition. And then you kind of go into that, like literally draw out the triangle, price on one side, location on the other, condition on one side. It's like we have to figure it out for you to under back out from there what that plan needs to be. Like you might be non-negotiable on your location, but you are negotiable on price or condition. Or you might say like my price is non-negotiable, which means you might have to change the location. But it's like because again, you're backing out and going to people if a lot of people are watching it. they have to feel like that call with you is just to personalize it to them. So you're explaining, instead of like doing that at the listing presentation, you're just explaining to them how that will work when you get there. So you kind of almost open with that rapport building of, here's how we try to understand your situation through this triangle model that we have. And that's that first part of the video, I think, almost of like, listen, if you're thinking of selling your home, here's the first thing we're going to have to establish. You have to understand this concept. Here's the things we're going here, because like you are going to have to move somewhere from where you are today, and that has to be considered in the process. Because then you're getting into all the kind of the details around that. So you explain that part, and again, that idea of like, okay, I need to book a call with them so I can work with him on what that is for me, and they're already going to start thinking about it. Then you go into that kind of next phase of a little bit of like how your system's going to apply once you have those established for them. But I think you got to open a little bit with that. And in there, you can tell stories. Be like, like I had a client who, like, their kids, and again, you're gonna know who your ideal client is. Use examples probably relate to them. So, like, they wanted to make sure their kids stayed in that school. They wanted to keep the same friends. So, location for them, like, this could not change. They wanted a budget around here, but that could go up 50 to 100. But condition, they didn't want to have to do any work. So for them, they wanted a move-in ready home in this location, but price they were a little flexible on. So we knew what we had to work with, and that's how we built the process for them. Right. So you're using the examples, you kind of introduce the concept, use an example to explain it further. Maybe do two of those, and then you get to the next one. I think you got to do that price, location, condition explainer in a video like that to still hit that rapport building that you normally would.
And that would be to bounce off the buyer side, which is really how many agents get their listing leads. So there
Yeah.
are people that advertise for listings. Normally, most marketers will tell you this is incredibly expensive by comparison to advertising to find buyers.
Yep.
But the neat thing is when you take a look at who sellers often work with, they work with the agent they're using to buy. Like whoever talks to them about where they want to go ends up selling their house.
Yep. But
So it's
even within that, it's like, even if they're coming in as a seller, you're still reframe a little bit as like, to sell your home properly, I need to know where you're going to help me apply the plan properly to you. Because like if you're in a time crunch versus like, you don't need to sell for 6 months, maybe like in a time crunch, we don't have the opportunity to come in and like fix up your home the same way. We're going to get your home as is to like the best we can in a week. But if you have 6 months, maybe it's worth bringing a contractor in and doing a reno on parts of it. But it's like, so like if you're telling me you got transferred for work and you're moving across the country and you got to be there in 3 weeks, we have to shorten this part. And you're showing that depending on their situation, you have flexibility within your system to apply how you need to do it. So we're going to like evaluate in your home based on your timeline and where you're going to, what the best way to get your home sold is, which for the outcome you need, because for some people it's price, some it's timing. And usually, I mean, it's a little bit of both, but if you have longer, you might be able to get more depending on the market. But you got to hit those scenarios early, I think, in the video to let them think about those things they wouldn't normally think of. You don't even have to get into the actual process yet. Then after that, you might be getting into the process.
okay. So I like the idea of bouncing off the other side into this type of conversation, and then
Yeah.
really when we take a look at answering those questions, I think that you would need a series of videos in my market due to the nature of the market. So if you're selling a condo to buy a house, I could make that video. And then if you're selling a house to upgrade, I could make that video. And I could make a video for downsizers. And you could really
Yeah.
turn it into chicken soup for the soul and just kind of
Yeah.
roll through all the industries.
And you might have like your process part filmed, and that's the same. Like you just use that clip for each of them.
Mhm.
Because like think of like Tom's story. Like he has one that's done really well for him on like buying a condo in Toronto.
Yes. And this is my
And
winter YouTube project is to do that long form video.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so it's that same approach, but it's like first you go with your ideal clients that sell the most frequent, you do the video for them. Then you back it out. It's the same idea of like when we talk about doing case study marketing. One of the things you want to have is like, yes, you want to have case studies for every type of person you work with, and you want to have it for every type of home and every neighborhood. And eventually, no matter the situation people come to you with, you can show them case studies of people in their exact situation. And you hit the one that's most relevant to them. Because some people, it's they want to know, have you sold in my neighborhood? Others, it might be, have you sold with someone in my going through my specific situation in life? And depending on what they say, is the one you might send them, or you might send them both one of their home and that situation. And by like how you even write the case study is going to change a little bit based on which of those you're trying to hit, right? Because like someone going through a really nasty divorce, if that was your specialty, you'd almost want to be able to show them a case study of how you help manage those dynamics and still get it sold for the right price. Because
Hmm.
like
And
some of those
so,
really nasty ones could be like they're not even talking to each other and they're going to have another agent during the so now it's like you almost got to work with another agent on the same side before you even get to a buyer agent.
yeah, but talking to them about what the potential pitfalls could be in those
Yeah,
situations is really clear or really
yeah,
like important because you got to stick the landing there.
yeah,
So you almost have to have a standing agreement out front saying like how close does it need to be to list price before this is like a thing for both of you
yeah,
and get some type of verbal commitment. Hey, if we were this close, then we would agree or we
yeah,
would strongly consider because that's where it normally falls apart.
yeah,
Now, when we're applying this back to our framework and saying like, is now the right time? Am I the right agent? The am I the right agent is where you're playing in this part of the presentation.
yeah,
So you want to show them that you can get results for people that are like them in similar situations.
yeah,
So if they can draw that parallel, and that's why case studies are kind of the thing right now. And in a case study, the same thing, you would have criteria. So what they want to know is would this agent be able to get me results? And results are normally high sale price, fast timeline, low
yeah,
hassle, good experience. Does it like there's a bunch of detailed ones too. Like I think that they used to call this controlling the white space, like the space where somebody doesn't know what's going to happen next.
yeah.
So they just go pending. How soon is it from that to an email that says, here's what the pending process is going to be like?
That's what I
So
think like the if you're doing the 60-minute listing presentation, like that part of it is going to be you're walking them through step by step how that whole process is going to play out. And you're like, now for you, that timeline here might be 2 days or 6 days or 10 days, depending on this factor, or this factor, which we can establish together. And then but you're still giving like your goal by the end of this video, they're convinced that you're the person for the job. And at no point now between now and when they're living in their next house are they going to be surprised by anything that happens unless it's a surprise and delight thing you're specifically planning out. But during that, there should be no surprises about the main process.
So could we maybe summarize that as being what they're looking for is a credible guide with a map or a plan?
Yeah,
And how you're showing them that you fit that is by going through the plan and it's
yeah,
obvious that you've done this lots because it's a very clear plan with like the steps that would make
yeah.
sense.
Like if they think of like a, the my kids do these all the time. Like you, like the maze they draw the path through. How much you're essentially showing that maze and then lighting up the route
Mm.
and saying, here's the path that we're going to take to oversimplify it. But that's essentially all you're kind of doing. And it's like that idea of like I was actually at a presentation that I love how this speaker worded it. I'm not going to do him justice. He was a sales trainer. And I forget the exact wording, but essentially what it was is all sales is the imparting of your certainty into their certainty. So it's like the more certain someone is that this is the right choice, the easier the sale is. So you have to understand, like coming into it, are they completely uncertain, not sure a little bit, but essentially you're just tipping that up here to like you're trying to make them as certain as you are that you're the right choice for them. And that's what this video is doing, is it's adding that certainty. That's why things like warranties work really well, because it adds that certainty of like, okay, if this doesn't work, at least I have the warranty to help me. If
Yeah, and
like,
I
or
think that
why people market guarantees.
that's part of what we know will make them will help them into that position is
Yeah.
do they feel as though they can trust you with something that's this
Yeah.
important?
Yeah.
So we
Is there going
talk
to be
about it
buyer's
in know,
remorse?
like, trust,
Yeah.
but where are you going to score the trust points? So case studies, if you have a lot of experience and we're able to document this stuff in a way that
Yeah.
they can see it and believe it, well, then in that case, it's really playing to the point of other people have trusted this person. So
Yeah.
social proof says I can do it too.
Yeah. And that's where I would get into like when you in the video where you're showing your process and you're like, okay, so like here's the step one of what we do with every client. And then you'd show an example of you having done with like, or you're talking about it, but you might on the screen here show a photo of the home. Be like our clients here, and maybe it's them with the sold sign, but it's like, here's what we did to get this home ready. Cause like, here's the issue here, here's the issue here, here's the thing here. The process came in, here's that before and after almost. So you're showing them through it, your process visually in the video. And then you go like, after we do that, we move to this section. Here's a client we did that with. Here's how that worked here. Here's why we did it this way. And here's what that led. And then you're just like, you're walking them through because you're almost now, if so, let's say hypothetically you have an 8-step process, you're able now without like being a little nuts about it, like 8 individual case studies almost at a high level that turns into one big, beautiful one at the end. But it's just that initial, we're going to seed into it examples as much as possible of people we've actually done this with. It's not just, I can do this. Here's the specific examples of how we did it.
Yep.
And
And the more
yeah,
that you're able to pull them in, and also the better that you are at telling stories,
no,
like they should not be the sequence of events. It
yep,
should, when you're giving your process, you're going to have to go through it in steps. But when you're telling stories, man, like
oh,
James
so
Bond movies start with action. They just like rip you right into what's going to happen next. And the
no,
same thing with you is you can make this fit. And it could be also that the first story that you tell is designed to win them over.
yeah. Well, you
So
can the
I
perfect story,
talk
and
about the three-legged
yeah,
cat named Mew and
yeah,
how we ended up with a listing where other realtors had brought cats in because they were so worried about losing the cat we had inside.
yeah.
And it resulted in funny conversations where we had to ask agents to count legs on cats.
I remember that one. Yeah,
But that could be like your lead in, and then they kind of like you just reference these stories, but the stories collectively show that you have experience, and each one is actually designed to help them understand that you've helped people like them through situations like this near here before.
yeah. And like this is what I always tell, like, is I more give this advice to speakers, but a little bit when we talk to agents about stuff is like collect stories that you can pull out for different situations. Like if you've heard me speak enough times, you'll hear a lot of the same stories over and over and over again. Because those are the ones I know when I pull these out, they help get the point across. Like if I want to quickly build rapport with agents, like I tell my door knocking story where I'm like, I got a deal on the second house I ever door knocked. And I thought this industry was going to be the easiest thing. And I was just going to start printing money. And then I go, and that was about the last deal I ever got door knocking.
Mm,
And it's like that instant rapport builder with people in the room. Cause like a lot of speakers come on, how amazing am I? It's like you're almost starting with that and then being like, and that was fucking terrible. And it's like that I know that story every time I do it, it warms the audience up.
mhm.
If you're in Halifax, it might be in that. I haven't decided if I'm putting it in the Halifax one yet, but
Well, I want to lay on to the hot side of this conversation before we close here, which is what is the right price?
yeah,
So this is something that can make or break any market evaluation. I think that great agents end up taking the pressure off price. And we all have different techniques in how we approach the problem, but there are some agents out there that just do it incredibly well. Like I think that Andy basically puts people in a situation where they're convinced that he will get the highest price no matter what that price is, but it's not about that specific price. It's just the highest price available in the
Yeah.
market. And he
Like,
transfers responsibility to you liking him and thinking he's credible, but he's got a lot of examples.
so like the way that I would do it, like if say I went back to sales today, I had a list presentation, like my goal would be to get the signature before we get the price. Right. So I'm going to explain to them how we'll price the property together to make sure they understand I know what I'm doing. And I will use stories of examples of why it's done that way. Because like the easiest one is like, let's say we're going out on the market tomorrow, or so like let's say 3 weeks from now we go on the market. The day before, three listings pop up in the neighborhood, but you still need to list. We might have to change our price to compete with those ones on the market. So me giving you a price today, like I can give you a range.
I do understand that
Yeah.
I do understand that this is something that would be a powerful proposition, but people are always in this like two phase of decision making, where the first part is research, and then the second
Yeah.
part is decision or action. So if you zoom out, that's marketing qualified leads that want more content versus those sales qualified leads that want conversations for cash. But then if you zoom in, this becomes an actual decision process. And without them understanding what is like the likely financial outcome, I don't know that
Yeah.
you can move them into action or that it would be at a high enough conversion rate. So I would
Yeah.
have to test for that.
Yeah. And a lot of it
Every
depends
other
how much
agent in
trust do
my
they have.
marketplace would be talking about price before they sign.
Yeah. But you'd have to then, like, this again comes into you'd have to have done the marketing before and during the presentation before that, like, they have that belief in you as the expert. They have that certainty that you have their back. And I would still give them the range they're in. Like I remember I was talking to one when I was selling where it's like they had renovated to the nicest home in the neighborhood. And like it wasn't a shadow of a doubt, like they over renovated this house. And they were doing that thing where like it was going to be the first house in the entire neighborhood that ever went over 1 million. And I was like, really, or their home should be worth like 1-1. But I was like, it's also going to be really hard because the highest sale before that was like 850. I was like, your home is worth 1-1, but it's going to be hard to get the like psychology of the buyers in a neighborhood to make that jump. So that's what we were talking about. Like sometimes you can't just say, hey, this is what it's worth, and then expect to get that every time because some people just won't, right? It's like the I always love the one night. I never worried about this objection. The people who are like, oh, they got the house for this though. I'm not going to pay them this much more. Like, doesn't matter. That's what the market is.
Yeah,
I love those ones
like you,
in
man, if you got a time machine, you can.
yeah. But I had
Go
a
put them by
client
a
like
dollar.
that. I'd eventually we ended up getting a deal, but I made them take like 3 months out at one point, and like we stopped working. Then they came back to me because every house we saw, he's like, okay, but what did they pay for the house? Well, I'm not giving them more than like a $50,000 lift. I'm like, they bought this 20 years ago. The home's worth like, I remember one we saw, it was now worth 650, but they had bought the home for 150. He's like, no, I'm not going to give them more than 200 grand. They only paid 150 for it. I'm like, that is irrelevant.
That's a real statement about that person.
Yeah. Oh, eventually it was his fiance who was just like, you need to stop talking. Because that's why it was the long break. Because I was just like, you're going to keep being like this. You're never getting a house. Go away. I said it more polite than that, which is why they did come back later on. But it took 3 months for them to like essentially sit out the market. And then eventually we almost lost the deal after that for $2,000. Like it was just one of those things where like no one was willing to move. But it's like even having that in your pocket is like, here's an example. Like the one that we finally got over the hump with that was just me talking to the fiance, his fiance, and just being like, if it sells for that number, how are you guys going to feel in a month? And then she took him away from me because he had to like not be there with me to like concede. So basically, part of the fun.
This is good info. So you challenge one of my ideas saying that like how can we get into a position where we're in a powerful enough position to say here's a range of evidence
but we're going to establish it later.
Yep. And this is going to be, I want to kind of see some other takeaways because I almost every agent that I know, one of the cardinal things about a listing presentation is they choose the price.
Yeah, and that
For
can be
me,
part of your pitch to them of like, here's why that's wrong, right? So
mhm,
like anyone who comes in and tells you a price today, well, if we get your home ready and then in the next 3 weeks, this happens, and this happens, your price is going to have to change for this reason, and this reason. So me giving you a price today is almost irrelevant. Any agent giving you a price today is well, now when everyone else comes in and gives you a price in their head, they're like, well, that's irrelevant because what if this happens, or this happens? You're setting those other agents up to fail when they come in and give a price because you're just
mhm.
basically saying like let's say hypothetically, like let's go like an extreme example, like what if tomorrow Trump announces a 200% tariff on everything in Canada? You think house prices are going to stay where they are? And you're like, so yeah, no, like until we're ready to go, like we're going to decide in the 24 to 48 hours before you go on the market, but we're going to
Yeah,
make
it
it in
doesn't even
this
need to be
range.
that big. It could be three
Yeah.
new listings on your block.
Yeah.
We are going to take this into any questions that anybody has into the after show because this is the Leads Are Sht, and this is the time where we close down the current podcast. We'd like to keep it to a tight hour, and then we're going to go afterwards with the people that are here live, and you can be next time as well, and we'll field any questions that they may have before we break.
And next week we're doing this together in person. We don't know exactly where yet in Halifax we're filming, but we are going to film this together in person next week. So you'll have a slightly different flavor to the show. But if you're here live, see you in a couple of seconds in the after show. Otherwise, if you're watching the recording, just show up live next time because otherwise you don't get cut off randomly mid.